Most people think that they want more money than they really do, and they settle for a lot less than they could get. Earl Nightingale.
What is up, champions? Welcome to another episode of Champion Reads, where we talk about best-selling books and their best principles to help you with your best life. I am your host today, Coach Willie Blake, and I am also wonderfully, happily able to have Mr. John Kovacs Jr., the founder of Champion Circle, with us today. And we got a great book. And John, even before I jump into the book, none of you know this because the intro is going on. But every time we play the intro, John and me are dancing in the background. Like we can see each other's cameras and we're like dancing to the music. So I hope every time that you all listen to the music, you're dancing as well. Today, we're jumping into a really good book. New book for this wonderful new month. And we're doing Bob Proctor's book, Born Rich. Boom, right there. If you're watching video, John's holding it up. Born Rich by Bob Proctor. And what a book. What a book it's been to be able to read. And specifically today, there are so many principles that we can jump into. And Bob Proctor, he was one of the first for me. Like when I got into wanting to be a speaker, there were two people that stuck out right away, which was Bob Proctor as well as Zig Ziglar. Those two, when I was in my business presentations class back in college, they were the first ones that showed up, and I'm like, that's what I want to be. And so being able to read a book by one of who I consider the greats, and I know many other people consider the greats, is freaking fantastic. And specifically today, we're going to jump into a question that's pretty simple. How much is enough? And John, I think I'll just throw it your way to start off this conversation. How much is enough?
Yeah, I mean, tip my hat, and I every time I hear Bob Proctor's name, I smile and I think about the lessons of personal development and the profound questions that he asks. And if you follow his history, and by the way, Willie, I believe you and I are co-authors in a series that pay tribute and homage and honor to Bob Proctor, the book of mentors, and we've labeled him as a legacy legend, and we've given just so much of our time and resources and our stories to honor him and mentorship. So we honor you, Bob. But I love talking about Bob because again, one of the biggest things people should understand is that, through the powers of professional development, he was most recognized for the law of attraction and how that belief is truly how you can manifest what you want and what you will. And I love that because Bob was profound. He knew exactly how to share it. He knew exactly how to connect to the soul. And for a lot of these concepts that might sound a little odd to people, he did a really great job of reaching thousands, millions of people through these ideas. And so in his book, Born Rich, which we've picked up, there's some really great questions in here. And you ask the question, how much is enough? And as I sit here today, I literally cannot say a number because I personally do not have that written down. I have not done my research. But I think this is a great concept to talk about and share with our listeners, because if you don't know what that number is, then what are you working towards, right? And I may be a bit of a hypocrite in this moment, giving out advice or sharing ideas, even though I don't have mine, because I feel like the more I grow my family, that number changes every day. But I won't make excuses. In fact, I'll just put myself in the hot seat here and say, yeah, what is that number? And reading this book and reading this chapter, there's some really great insights on how to apply that in your life. But you got to think about it. Like it's not just a number, right? It's how much is enough. And when you compare that to the title of the book, the theory, the whole foundations of you were born rich, what does that mean? And what does that mean for you? What does that mean for others? And so it may be a number, which you should close down on a number with your significant other and family, but also what does that look like? I mean, if you think about it, when it comes to being born, you were one of several, 100,000 different little sperms who made it to the egg, who really did the hardest process there is to ever measure in science and history, and that's becoming human. And so first of all, you were born a winner. You were born um rich in the vitamins and the minerals and the complexities that create human life, and you were born rich with the ability to use one of those things called a brain. And there's just so many like answers to that question of, how much is enough? Well, first of all, you are enough, and you always will be. No matter what your situation is, you will always be enough. But now, in order to have what you truly desire, how much is that? How much is enough? And I love asking this question, and I'm definitely open to delving deeper into this conversation, and truly not figuring it out here on the air, but really figuring out, like, what does that mean to us? What does that mean to others? And what does that mean when you are pursuing various avenues throughout your life, as you know that, like, hey, I want to figure it out. Like, what would it be? And a lot of people would just throw out the word, like the number, like, oh, I need $1 million. That'd be enough. Um, the reason why I bring that one up is because I just saw a lottery ticket program, because the Super Bowl's coming up, and there's a lot of betting and a lot of gambling and a lot of things going on during the Super Bowl. And I thought, well, that's an interesting thing. I bet $1 million wouldn't last me that long. And I bet it wouldn't last most people that long, especially in today's economy and especially what's going on in the world. But yeah, very, very interesting. And I think it's a lot more than you think it is. But I also think that when you establish habits and you create the wealth and you live in a certain way, you'll find that it's actually more reasonable and doable than you believe. And my last thought here on this is, like, Dave Ramsey, he says, you need to sacrifice. You need to live like no one else so that you can live and give like nobody else. And despite what you may think or feel about Dave Ramsey, I love that phrase. I love that perspective, because it's not just about living, it's about giving. And Born Rich was that concept, because now it's not just about receiving, but it's about, like, what can you do with what you have? And I love that. I mean, for those of you who've ever been to a foreign country, you'll know that some countries aren't as fortunate as the one we live in. And if that's the case, well, look at their attitudes. They were born rich. They have smiles on their faces. They've got families and a roof over their head, and some of them have plumbing. And it's like, okay, so define rich, right? What does that mean to be born rich? And then also, if I want to be rich, how much do I need? It's a fascinating concept. So I'll keep cycling and circling and spiraling if I don't let my co-host here take over. But I just think it's a really cool, powerful concept and a question.
It is a very intriguing question, because I think a lot of people that I've learned this recently. If I could share it, you got a dream, you have a goal, and then you have a plan. So a dream is a wish. You just want something to happen. A goal is just like, I want to achieve it, and you start working towards it. It's still out there. It's just this finish line that you're trying to get to, but it's just like, that's something that I want and that I might put action into. And then you have a plan, which, if you have a plan, you are specific. It's the blueprint. You got the milestones. You have everything in there you need to be able to then take the steps necessary to get the results that you want. And I find it interesting that when people keep it as a dream, that I'm going to say less than 0.1% of people actually get that dream. I'm just going to throw statistics out there, but I feel just within my gut that these are pretty accurate. Boost my ego. No, but just the feeling of it. So with a dream, you're so unlikely to get it unless you sacrifice your dream and put it into a goal. And a goal, I think about 5, maybe 10%, being very conservative on that one, of people actually reach a goal that they have. We know from New Year's resolutions that the second Friday is when more than 50% of individuals drop off the New Year's resolutions. So it's just like 5 to 10% actually get the goal. And sometimes we don't realize that in order for us to actually get the unattractive, the result is attractive, but to go through the path that might be unattractive, we got to get the plan. We got to sacrifice the goal for actually enabling the plan. I think a lot of us love the comfort of the goal. I know I love the comfort of the goal. When I heard this question of like, goodness gracious, it's going to come to me. How much is enough? I really thought to myself, I'm like, how much is enough? I've said I'd love to make 100K a year. I've also said I wanted to make $1 million a year. I know I've said that, oh, having $1 billion would be the best in my bank account, right? But those are just dreams and goals. But what, like, in tangible reality, how much is enough? And I think about it, and I have to think of the family that I have and that I want in the future. I think of the possessions that I want to have, and all these different things that go on in the life. And I think for most people, it's less than you think. I don't think people need to actually make millions of dollars a year to be able to be satisfied with their life. And Bob Proctor jumps into this where he's just like, the amount that you make and the wealth that you have doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the happiness that you want. Of course, it can help provide some things, but money's on the outside. It's this dirty green piece of paper that's out there. But where's happiness? That's from within. So I find this question so interesting because it jumps into like, all right, how much is enough? We're gonna keep you accountable. We're gonna add we're gonna actually get the specifics here so you don't hide behind your dream or hide behind the coolness of a goal. How much is enough for you? And John, I also feel like a hypocrite. Like I have not gone into this, but the principle still rings true that how much is enough? And at the end of the day, it's probably not as much as you think you need.
It's a great reminder because if you think about your life right now, are you alive? Are you, hey, is this thing on? Like, are you alive? You are? Really? Oh, that's interesting. So you're alive. And according to society, if you're living, then you're not dead. And that's a weird thing to think because now you realize, like, how do you continue to stay alive? Well, you probably need food, you probably need water, you probably need a shelter, you probably need just like good practices and you know, um, a little bit of discipline so you don't just like kill yourself through terrible acts or neglecting acts, right? So if you think about it, like, aren't you thriving? Now, culture and society have probably deemed thriving or killing it as, rich, like filthy rich, like, uh, um, I don't know. I almost said Billy Madison, like whose father has the hedge fund, the pension or the continued funds that pay them out, generational wealth. Okay, but if you really think about it, and I love Willie's question, like it's probably not as much as you think it is. And the truth is you're probably already thriving. You're just setting an impossible or a difficult or even harder standard on yourself because of what you think you want and need. Yes, it would be great to drive whatever car you want to drive and to spend whatever money you want to spend without even thinking and so forth and have the toys and bells and whistles of life. Sure. Sure. Those are all amazing things, but are you not thriving now? Are you not breathing? Are you not a complex human being? I think this just philosophical thought behind it is, wow, like we really do have a lot going on. Could we have more? Of course you could. There's so much out there. I mean, there's an abundance. There's an abundance theory that you could have it all, and more, so that you could give it back and give it to others. And that's just what happens and goes into all this. But I do like that idea that maybe it's not as much as you think it is. And also recognize, hey, you may not have it all right now, but you probably are thriving and you're not giving yourself credit. Humans make mistakes. And in our societies and cultures, you make mistakes all the time. And those mistakes probably put a lot more harsh stress on your body and your family and your placement because you think you want more for yourself and for others. And you probably don't have that because you're paying off a mistake, whether that is having to work more hours than you should. Maybe it's having to save more money or pay off bills or or something, right? That whatever it might be, you've made mistakes, and those mistakes are what add to the stress level of your life. Bob Proctor talks about this, and he says, at this point in your life, you're probably already saying to yourself, oh, yes, I know that, but I want to live better than that. So he's talking about, how much is enough? I know that I want to, make or have $1 million of savings in the bank so that I'm good, right? But how much is enough? And also, you probably want more. But he gets into a really great list of just reminders. Like, okay, first of all, I'm going to ask this question twice, Willie. I'm going to ask it from the perspective of do you already have this? That's the first question. So let's just start there. Do you already have this? Do you have food? Hmm. Do you have the ability to pay your rent or mortgage? Hmm. Am I going to do the after every question? Maybe. And do you have clothes? Do you have automobile? Do you have transportation? Do you have utilities such as what is that? Air conditioning, heater,
Heater,
um,
gas, yeah.
gas, water, yeah, all that stuff. Okay. Do you have education or do you have access to education? Do you or have you ever been on a vacation? Hmm. There it is again. Do you have recreation nearby? Do
Hmm.
you have insurance of some sort? And last is, do you have savings? I can tell you for me, out of the 10 there, I have 9 out of 10. And 9 out of 10 that are adequate for me. Yes, I have everything I need. And this is inspiring to think of it in that perspective because absolutely, no matter what, I was born rich. And how lucky are we? How blessed are we to have all this? But in this context, I'll ask the question again real quick. Bob's actually talking about, okay, well, do you have enough? What is enough? Right? How much is enough for you? How much more food do you need? How much more rent and mortgage do you need? How much more clothes, automobiles, utilities, education, vacations, recreations, insurances, and savings do you need to be enough, to have enough? And so this is becoming more of a personal question than it was before. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, what is that number? Or what is that perspective? And what is that idea of yours that is enough? So you really got to start to think, are you rich? Are you born rich? And are you currently on the path to being the rich that you think is your rich? I don't know. This is getting deeper. We are like digging this rabbit hole all the way to the other center, to the center of the earth. Like this is getting wild.
And we're gonna keep going. It's man, as you went over that list, I'm thinking, yes, yes, yes. Like most of those I could say yes to. And it's crazy that in the society that we have today, it's weird to not want more.
Yeah.
And I don't think in the raw sense of wanting more is bad. But I think that in the sense of how society puts it as don't be grateful for what you have. You need more. You need more money. You need to have a better house. You need to be able to have For some people, a better spouse after however long you've been with the old one. There's just like so many different things that go into what society calls enough. And it's amazing that when you just go over it, it's just like, do you have food? Do you got some water? Do you have a house over your head? Do you have people that you can talk with? Do you have a family? Like, there's so many different things that when you actually think about it and start doing this like grateful list, you're like, man, I have so much. And when you live in that abundance mindset, it just brings this clarity and brings in this peaceful feeling and saying, you know what, there are some things that I want and there are some things I don't have, but an honest reality of everything, I have enough in most things, and that's pretty okay. And so for the champions who are listening to this, like, ask yourself, do you have enough in those areas? And the answer most likely is yes. So sit in gratitude. Sit in gratitude for what you want. One of my favorite exercises to do is I call it the grateful three, which is every time you have a negative thought or a thought that doesn't help you towards your future, you got to say three things you're grateful for. So if it's just like, oh, we got to jump on this podcast and start recording. Oh, I don't want to do this today. It's like, okay, three things you're grateful for. Well, I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for my house. I'm grateful for this Rubik's Cube sitting next to me. But what I'm not grateful for is always catch yourself, because then you got to come up with three more. And the cool thing is that you never can repeat the three things you're grateful for. Always has to be something new. And in the 6 years that I've done this over and over again, I have still never had the same thing come up. Each of us have so much in our lives. So when you actually get to the nitty gritty of it, going down that rabbit hole, like grateful for fingers, grateful for legs, grateful for the air that we breathe, the lungs that we have, the blood that pumps through us, the red cells and the white cells, the food that we have, vegetables, fruits, the meats, the proteins, the fats, the carbs, like everything that goes into it. It's just like, oh my goodness, we live in such abundance. It's time for us to start being grateful for it. Man, you
Oh,
got me going down a rabbit hole.
I love this. Let's splinter off and talk more about gratitude, because gratitude is fantastic. I've started so many gratitude journals, and you're absolutely right, Willie. Like, it just keeps going. Sometimes you have to stop and think because it's not flowing as fast. But when you think about it, like, you're grateful for every little thing. And then the second you start to say what I'm not grateful for, I love that. Catch yourself and keep going. I think about the little kid that's giving a prayer, and they ask how to give a prayer, and the parents educate them on, hey, well, tell them what you're grateful for. And the kid just goes on and on and on. And, it's just so cute and endearing, because it's like, wow, that's so beautiful how gratitude can shape us. I think it's interesting too, because, and I'll just continue to pull stuff from the book here, but one of my favorite concepts that Bob talked about, and I remember this because I also learned this from Stephen Covey. But it's about starting where you're at, like, from the ground up, and you've got to start where you're at. So he has a concept here that he says, hey dog, excuse me. I have a dog that has asthma, and so okay, she's gonna hack up a load while we're on this. So I'm gonna escort them out in just a second. But the bloom where you are planted, start now concept is very interesting, because because when do you start to live this good life? And he talks about how statistics indicate that although most people are insured, the vast majority of people, at least 90%, are dangerously uninsured. So start by answering the following questions. How often do you pay your phone bill? How often do you pay your rent or mortgage? How often do you pay your grocery store? How often do you pay for gas for your car? How often do you pay your doctor? How often do you pay yourself? The last question seems to be a strange one, because you don't realize that fewer than 5 people in every 100 every ever pay themselves. And then he goes into talking about a great book, which we've done here on this podcast, Willie, is The Richest Man in Babylon. And he talks about the law of financial success. Pay yourself first. And so I take that concept of gratitude and say, well, gratitude is a form of payment, because when you give gratitude to somebody and you say thank you, that's an exchange. That's a transaction. Most people feel validated when you say thank you. When you give thanks, you pay tribute to that which you have or have received. And then if you give gratitude to yourself, imagine paying yourself through gratitude as well as money. Like money's important. I'm not going to lie. But at the same time, paying yourself first through gratitude, are we not rich? Are we not rich in the richest resources and soils of life? And it comes when we recognize what we truly have. Man, this is getting deeper. We just unlocked a cavern and we're going deeper into the center of the earth because I'm telling you, there's more to this. You are rich, but your standard of rich is a lot larger and your expectations are the ones holding you back and down. But if you continue to feel the way you feel and it's a negative feeling towards richness, I'm sorry, but you could pay your gratitude a visit and start saying to yourself how rich you truly are and figure out exactly what is enough, how much is enough. Man. Whew. We're gonna keep going. Get your
We're gonna,
headlamps ready. Turn on the lights. Let's go.
we're gonna. Y'all ready for this? Oh, such a great topic, and I know that we're coming up on the last few minutes of this episode. This would be a great one to continue to next week, and even bring another insight with Ian on here, because such a great book. And I think I'd love to, not that going down the rabbit hole is bad, but bringing it back up to like what's rich? What does it mean by rich? Now, with my final thought with it, it's just each of us have a different version of rich, and I've never ever been satisfied during the time in my life where I've thought rich only means money. But the times I've been satisfied, been at most peace, and been most myself and living my purpose is the time to where money is about 5% of it. And the other 95% is everything else that I have within myself, the people around me, the God that I worship, to everything in abundance and the gratitude that I share just with this whole world as I share my light. It's been the most amazing thing to be able to live how we were born, which is rich. And that it's not just money, but it's everything else that's in this beautiful world.
Yeah, I'll finish up with my final thoughts too, Willie, and just share this is a great reminder of just everything you truly do have. And there are strategies to get what you want. And that's what we teach and preach at Champion Circle. I mean, everyone has goals, everyone has aspirations. So why not get there faster? And I'll share one last part of this. Bob teaches that there are 3 steps to establish the habit of financial success if that's what you're seeking for richness. And the first one is decide how much money is enough to fund your dreams. So figure that out. And then second is design a new financial plan or have one designed for you by an expert. And then the third one is don't deviate from that plan for 2 months until it becomes a habit. So I love this because there's 2 concepts of rich for me. There's rich where you stand, recognizing how truly you are, but then honor your dreams because they're real, because there's a reason for them. I care about those reasons. I know that Willie cares about those reasons. That's why we operate a business called Champion Circle, so that we can see and help and follow people throughout their process, their journey, and their dreams. And that's so important to me that you achieve your dreams. Because if you don't achieve your dreams, don't be a member of the herd that went down off the cliff that just never made it to their dreams. Like truly find yourself thriving and see yourself thriving because you truly are rich. You're born rich, you're growing rich, and that's why I love the synergies between Bob Proctor and his mentor through Napoleon Hill and how he learned so much from Think and Grow Rich. And if you really dive into that and put Born Rich and Think and Grow Rich next to each other, you realize that, oh my gosh, if you have the ability to desire and you've got a belief and a faith and a hope that leads you to creating the actions necessary to acquiring what you truly want, you'll recognize that you were rich all along. And that's a priceless feeling and experience. So when you come to that realization, I applaud you. And when you finally get clear on what your dream is and how to get there, I applaud you again. And when you get there, don't forget to turn around and help others on the way.
Well said. And champions, that wraps this episode up of Champion Reads. If you have found inspiration in this, go ahead and subscribe to our podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, and all the other major podcasting platforms. As well as you can go to our website, mychampionscircle.com, where it'll have the link to the podcast, link to all of the socials, and everything else going in the Champion Circle universe. Until next time, my friends, continue to be the champions in your life. Continue to be the best version of yourself. And always remember, live in gratitude, and you truly can be born rich. We'll see you on the next episode of Champion Reads.